Building a brand is much more than just choosing a logo, picking some pretty colors and a pretty font, and just plastering it everywhere. A great branding strategy conveys what your company stands for, who exactly your customers are, and where your company is looking to head in the future. Today, we're going to be going over how you can go about figuring out each of those things for your specific business so that you can create your own unique brand. So let's go ahead and jump into it now. So it only makes sense that the first place that we're going to start here is to discuss what exactly is a brand. The answer to this question might seem more straightforward than it actually is. As I said in the intro, that brand is more than just your logos and your colors. It's your reputation. It's how people see your business. It's how they feel about your business and how they feel when they shop with you. It's how your customers, your investors, your employees, and your competitors all see your business. Your branding is going to show your company's values. It's going to show and speak to your actual target audience, and it's going to help you stand out in the crowd. So the most important thing that you need to do is to create an actual branding strategy. And while this can be a daunting task, especially if you've never done it before, you don't need to worry because you know how I do, and I have created some actual steps that you can take. So let's get into the steps now, and then you can follow along step by step. So in step 1, you're going to identify your company's values. And the first thing I want you to do in this step is to write out your story if you haven't already. If you have a website or even a shop on Etsy, you probably have a little about me, about us section, and that's kind of what I'm talking about here. But you want a story. How did your company come about? What is the purpose? Like, why are you even in business? Who are you? Who is your company? So write a little, about you story, because this is important for people to be able to get to know you. I've actually done it. I mean, I don't know if you've done it, but I've actually gone to and looked at people's, like, I see a website, this looks really cool. How did this even come about? How did they think of that? And I've gone through and definitely read people's stories and how their businesses came about. I find it interesting. And if not your customers, any potential investors also would want to see this narrative from you. So go ahead and write your about story and make sure you include anything you possibly can that people might want to know about you. Okay, so the next thing you want to do in this step is we're going to think about what your business is exactly. So grab a pen and paper and write down your answer to the following questions. What products do you sell? What are your morals? What is the vibe of your company, or what vibe do you want your company to have? What problem do you solve, or problems do you solve? And how do you want others to view you? And that's an important one. Okay, so the next part to this step is to write your company's mission statement. And in this mission statement, you're really going to want to have 3 parts. It's going to have your purpose, it's going to have your vision, and it's going to have your values as a company, of course. So let's look at some possible questions that you can ask yourself that you may want to include in each one of these sections. So you want to try to have 1 sentence for each. When trying to figure out your purpose, we want to ask ourselves, what do we do? Who do we serve? What are we trying to accomplish? And how do you get things done? Now, for the vision part of your statement, you want to think about where you're going, what you want to achieve in the future, and what impact do you want to have. So vision is essentially, your vision for your future. And then in the values section, you want to ask yourself, what do we stand for? What behaviors do you value most? How will you conduct yourselves as a business? Not just you and the business, but your employees as well. And how do you want the world to see you as a business? So these three factors, these three parts of the statement will make up your mission statement. You'll probably have a sentence or two for each. You do want it to be short. Mission statements should be short. But that graph I just had up on the screen, I actually will have a link down in the description for it if you want to go ahead and just download that and use it as your reference, and that's fine. You can do that. I actually have a couple more graphs, 2 more graphs I'm going to have in this video, and all 3 will be in the same file, and then you can just go and download that and have these at your fingertips for when you're ready to sit down and do the work yourself for your own business. And then the last part in this step is we're going to write down some descriptive words. You want to think about your company in terms of its feel. How is it going to feel to people? So you want to go ahead and start writing down some descriptive words that explains it. And here I have another chart for you to help you out and show you some ideas of some words, some examples that you can use. So I have these broken down in 6 different sections. I would recommend having at least 1 in each section. You want to have like a range of words to get a full picture of what your company is going to look like and feel like, but you don't want too many because then it gets a little difficult to narrow things down when it comes to your branding. The first one we're going to look at is the culture of your company. Obviously, some examples I have here are, say, healthy, friendly, authentic, dynamic, family. Those are just some examples that you might have for culture. There's many, many more out there that you could possibly come up with. And the next section I wanted to talk about is your customer. Who is your customer? What is a descriptive word of your customer? They could be busy. They could be health conscious. They could be family oriented. They could be more suburban, or maybe they're more professional. Again, plenty of other words you could come up with. Try to think of a word or 2 that best represents your ideal customer or the customers that you currently have. The next section you can think about is your company's voice. Are you witty? Are you nurturing? Are you bright? Are you bold? Are you more organic? And this is going to greatly depend, obviously, on the types of products or services that you sell. You know, if you're selling, all natural herbal products, then you're probably going to be more on the organic side. If you're selling kids products, you're probably going to be more on the bright and bold side. If you're gearing your business more towards moms, you would be more on the nurturing side. So depending on what type of business you have, decide like what your business voice is going to be. And then this brings me right into the next one, which is the feel, which is quite similar, but with a little difference. And some examples of this are healthy, taken care of, energy, warm, exciting. And this is how you want people to feel about your business. Do you want to feel when they use your products? Do you want them to feel healthy? Do you want them to feel energized and motivated? Do you want them to feel warm? Again, can go with nurturing. So see how some of these words can go together. If we say from voice organic and feel healthy, you start to get an actual feel for the business itself. If you want it to be bold and energized, see, you're really starting to describe a whole business instead of just one feeling or thought. So the next one is impact. What impact do you want to have? Do you want to help people feel satisfied? Do you want to help them save money? Do you want to help them feel a sense of community? Do you want to help save them time on something? Do you want to help them live longer? This is really your problem solving section here. What is it that how are you trying to impact your customers with your products or services, or as a company in whole? And then the last one is just kind of the it factor. This is just like a little something that you can add to make yourself a little more unique, or if you already have something that makes you a little more unique, maybe you're artistic or fun or exotic or more rustic or spiritual. And essentially these are just other great descriptive words that maybe don't fit in the other categories, but that actually help set you apart from competitors. And so those can be very handy. Again, this sheet will be included in the download in the description if you want to go ahead and download that, if it makes things easier for you. Okay, so now we're moving on to step 2, and that is to create your customer avatars. You may have heard this before, but it really, really is important. Do not underestimate the importance of creating not just a customer avatar, but a very detailed person, okay? A very specific person. As a matter of fact, I would actually create 2 to 3 different people, okay? So when you think about your customers, most likely you have different types of customers, okay? You're probably not have one specific type of person that you are geared towards, okay? So even if you're looking at, say, a mom niche, you're talking to moms. There's different types of moms out there. You have the stay-at-home moms, you have the single moms, or you have the moms who are the family providers. They might not be single, but they're providing for the household. There's tons of different types of moms out there. So just because you're geared towards moms does not mean that you only have one customer. So with that being said, I would consider 3 different types of customers. And one of those, the first one would be your best customer, okay? Your best customer if you're already in business that you currently have. And then maybe think of a problem customer. One that gives you a little bit more challenge and then is a little bit more of a pain point. So maybe a more challenging customer. And then the third one I would think of is your ideal customer. So maybe you have this customer you really want to sell to, or you really want to sell to the most, and maybe you're not quite selling to them as much now. You might want to consider having an ideal customer at all. And that's why I say 2 to 3. Maybe your best customer already is your ideal customer, and then that's perfectly fine. So 2 to 3 avatars we're going to create here. And so now what we need to do is we need to write the actual profiles for these customers. I have listed here best customer, ideal customer, problem customer as the example. But what you need to write down and know about each of these customers, and you want to be as specific as possible. And you want to think of an actual person, as better yet, give them a name. Actually give them a name, what you think their name would be. All right, each different one should have a different name. That will make things easier for you to visualize this person later. And so what you can do here, what you need to do here is for each of those customers, what are their goals and values? Like, what do they want out of life? What is the most important thing to them in their lives? Then you want to write their likes, dislikes, and fears, and that could be hobbies, that could be all types of things, whatever they really like and they don't like, and they might be afraid of. And the next one is going to be pains points and challenges, and this is going to be what in life gives them a headache every day. What can they really use to help them out and make things easier? And then the next section is what is their role in the decision-making process? This one's kind of important because if you think about, it's harder to gear towards kids, right? Because the kids are not in control of whether or not a product gets purchased. So when you are marketing towards kids, you're really marketing towards parents with kids in mind, right? So keep those types of things, in your mind. If the kid doesn't have the money to spend, it's not going to really help you to gear towards that child. And then the last section you want to think about is all of the specifics of the person, like what's their background, their education, their income, their gender, their age, etc. Again, with all of this, it's just a guide. Be as specific as you can. You want to be able to think about this person in the next steps and put yourself in their shoes, and that really will help you create the best branding strategy that you can create. So after you've found your actual customer avatars, I suggest taking a minute and going back to step 1 and just making sure that everything fits with your customer avatar. So if your customer, let's say your descriptive words ended up being that you have this exotic and friendly and bold like feel in business, and that's what you're going for. But then it turns out after you've created your customer avatars, maybe your best or your ideal customer is a middle-aged single male. Those descriptive words and that feel may not actually speak to that male. He may want something a little more masculine, maybe a little more muted in colors, like navy or royal blue and orange, and having just more like it's just a different feel than what they would be interested. Then you might want to go back and reassess, okay? Because having that disconnect between who your customer is and what your business is putting out there can be a real issue with branding. And sometimes it's hard because if your business is geared towards somebody that's not much like you, but you've picked colors and how you want your business to be based on what you like, then that's a problem, because you're not trying to get people like you. You're trying to get people like your customer. So just go back quickly and check and make sure that everything kind of goes together and it makes sense before we go ahead and move on to step 3. Okay, so moving on to step 3, we are going to check out the competition. And basically it's pretty straightforward. What you want to do is you want to go out there and you want to look at competitors. Obviously your competitors are going to be in a similar niche and offering similar products or services than you. But you want to go out. It's important. We are going to go and see what we get from these customers, from these companies, these competitors. Where we want to look at their website. How does it feel? What colors are they using? What fonts are they using? How does their navigation work? What kinds of information are they giving you? Are they missing information that you would need to know as your customer? And keep in mind, it is very beneficial if you play the role of one of those avatar customers and try to get in their shoes and think about how you would feel as them going to this competitor's website or going to their store or watching their video or whatever it is you're looking at researching. How is the product making you feel? Is it solving a problem? Is it creating a new problem? Is it solving one problem, but is it a miss on a different problem? As I said before, if you go to the website, is there information that you would really need to know that's not there? Or are you struggling with certain parts of their website navigation? Look at their checkout process. Is that an issue? So doing all this research for your competitors and putting yourself in your customer's shoes is a great way to see not only, things that you may not want to do or you may want to steer clear of, but it also might give you some ideas that you hadn't even thought of. Something that, you're like, what, that's cool. I didn't even think someone might need to know that information. Or maybe it's too hard to find the information and you're like, I really like this information, but it would do better over here at the front. Or you can look at the pictures. There's tons of things you can look at, but don't just look at the feel of it, which is part of it, but look at things that you might want to do better, that you can do better, or things that, for lack of a better term, that you can steal from them as far as ideas. Not products, you're not stealing products, but as far as ideas that they might have out there. While you're doing all of this competitor research, make sure that you are writing everything down. Maybe you can do screenshots and create mood boards, whatever you need to do to keep the information organized, so that you can go back to it later and you can use that when you start to create your actual strategy, which we're going to do in the next step. All right, so step 4 is to design your brand identity. So now that you know what you want to say and how you want to make people feel, and you know who you're talking to, it's important to start designing your actual identity. So now's when you're going to want to start to pick your logo, design your logo, pick your fonts, pick your colors, decide on what you want your website to look like, your graphics. Maybe you have some kind of like preset that you want to have on all your graphics so it's nice and cohesive. What feel are we going for here? Even what types of advertising and promotions that you may want to get into, because that may be different depending on who you're talking to. You know, if you're talking to millennials and boomers, you may want to advertise on Facebook. But if you're looking at Gen Z or younger, you might want to look more towards maybe TikTok or something like that. I mean, where you're going to advertise and how you're going to advertise is going to differ depending on who your customer avatar is. And you also want to look at your packaging. So what you're going to do is you're going to use all the information that we've gathered in the previous steps, okay? So we know what our mission is and what we want our field to be, and we know our descriptive words, and we know our customer avatar and who we're talking to. And we've got all of our ideas from our competitors of different things that we can do and pitfalls that we want to avoid, okay? And we want to go ahead and use all of that information to start creating these logos, fonts, etc. So now's when you're going to decide, do you want your colors to be crazy and bright, or do you want them to be more soft and gentle? Do you want your fonts to be large and bold, or would you like a softer script? Should your graphics be loud and eye-catching, or should they be more subtle and classic? So these are the types of things that you're going to start thinking about now using your descriptive words. Again, don't forget about things like your customer experience, your customer service, and the feel that they're getting for things, and website navigation and things like that. We want to remember that as well. We want to include everything in this section, okay? So make sure you're thinking about that as well. So to make things easier on you, I recommend that you take your descriptive words and you take them over to Pinterest and you go ahead and you take one word and then put brand designs after it. So if one of your words is healthy, then maybe you put healthy brand designs in Pinterest. The reason you should look up different description words that you have is because it is quite possible that your business is more dynamic and you have different types of customers that you're looking at, and you might need to incorporate different styles together. Okay, so if you have no specific gender really that you talk to, so you have an avatar for a man, an avatar for a woman, because those are both your customers, then you may want to find a way to fit in something a little more masculine with something a little more feminine and balance them out. So maybe you have a font that's a little more on the feminine side, not something super script and bubbly, but maybe a little more on the feminine side, and maybe you want to pair that with colors that are a little bit more masculine. And that way you have like a nice combination that would really be good for everybody. And this is extremely important when you're talking about your packaging as well. You want to make sure that you're not alienating one of your ideal customers or one of your avatars, okay? You don't want to alienate any customers. You don't want to make the guy feel like this is made for women. Why am I going to buy this? That can be a complicated task and may take you some time to figure out how to meld those two different things together. So look up as many of the descriptive words, get as many examples off of Pinterest as you can, and then kind of pick and choose the different aspects as you keep your descriptive words in mind. Yes, I know it seems like a lot, but once you start creating mood boards, it's really not that hard, especially if you're doing it on your iPad or your computer. You can really click and like move things around. Of course, you can print these things out and move them around on paper, so that's probably just as quick as well. But I would have something different assets that you can use, like examples of font, something written out in the font that you're interested in, a couple different fonts, the colors that you might be interested in, some examples of other packaging, some of your competitors, things that you liked from their website, and include those in a mood board. Now, as far as creating your design kit or mood boards or whatever it may be, you can head over, there's a few different programs you can do it in, right? Because you could just do it in Photoshop. But if you want something a little more structured, where you can where they're gonna guide you through the different assets that you really wanna look for, if you go over to Canva, there's a great amount of templates that you can use. And then they'll have the example, and then you just put in your own, photos and fonts and colors and things like that. And then you can play around with it that way. Or you can also go over to places like Creative Market or Etsy, and people will sell for pretty cheap those like templates that you can use as well. They might be a little more detailed over there, but you can find them in tons of places to guide you. And if you are still having a lot of trouble with this step and you are struggling with this point, you can of course always go to Fiverr or Upwork, and you can hire somebody to create these design kits for you. And so the great thing is you've done all the research and the work in the first 3 steps that you need to supply them in order to have the best chance of them hitting the nail on the head. It depends on who you're working with. I mean, you can ask them to create a couple different options. Maybe they just create one at a time. But if you give them all that information that you created in the first 3 steps, then they should be able to come up with something great for you. So now you're ready to let the world know who you are as a business and get your name out there. And one more tip that I really wanted to mention is I would have all of this stuff written down. You should have your story written down. You should have your mission statement written down. You should have your customer avatars, your descriptive words, and you should have your design kit. And I would have it all together in some kind of booklet or a file or something like that you can supply to anybody you hire out, that you can supply to your employees, or even that you just use for yourself whenever you're making decisions. You just use that as your reference point to make sure that you're always keeping things in line with your brand. Whether you have like 5 employees, 1 employee, or 30 employees, it's really going to help you keep your team on the same page as well. So your team knows who you are as a business and how they need to be representing your business. And that's important because you're going to be giving them things to do. And if you're managing properly, then you're not micromanaging. You have to be able to trust your employees to do things without having you looking over their shoulder. So it is important that they know and understand all of this information for their day-to-day decisions. I know that this is a bit of a heavy subject, okay? I'm aware. But I am guessing that most, if not all of you that watch my channel and that are probably watching this video are probably quite new to running a business and entrepreneurship. And so I really, truly think that everything that I've given you today is enough to get you started and get you understanding everything, okay? You do not need to be on some crazy corporate level with a huge marketing team and and all of that when you're just starting out. So I think it'd be fine, and I hope that I was able to help you. And per usual, let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, and if I was able to help you today and you would not mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really greatly appreciate it. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.